Hello, friends, and welcome to the Optimized Advisor Podcast, where we focus on optimizing the well-being and best practices of insurance and financial professionals today. On this show, our objective is to help you optimize your life, optimize your profession, and learn from other optimized advisors. I'm your host, Scott Heinela. We hope you enjoy the show. Andrew Martz, CFP, MBA, WIS Advisors. Or is it WIS Advisors?
It's whatever you prefer.
Okay.
It's kind of
I prefer WIS Advisors. It's more distinguished, more profound.
So.
Yeah.
Kind of makes you guess what the WIS stands for.
Correct. Not WIS.
Not WIS.
Yeah. There's no such thing as a WIS.
That's right.
How long ago was it that we recorded episode 22? When would have that been?
It would have been within the last 2.5 years. It was, you were still living in
less
California,
than
but I
2.5
was
years.
living in Texas. So it was probably about 2.5 years.
Yeah, but
ago.
you were only how many months ahead of us were you from refuging yourself from California?
We were August of 2020.
Okay.
8 months maybe.
Okay. Oh, so that, yeah, pretty significant.
So somewhere in that window is when we
Yeah. I mean, relative to our time now here as Texas residents, 8 months is significant as a percentage of overall time.
Sure.
Yeah. As time goes on, that will become less
and
significant.
less.
Yes, absolutely. Right. We're good with math. Good with numbers.
Good thing we're numbers guys, huh?
So yeah, it was probably, you're right, I think 2.5 years ago.
Give or take.
You have any memory of what we talked about?
Yeah, I think you were, that was, like you said, episode 22. So you were really launching, I know that in the first 20 episodes of a podcast, like you're figuring out the identity of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So you're having advisors on and, everybody's talking about their practice. And, you and I have always connected on a friendship level because of our beliefs about our families, our businesses. And I'm not trying to work to live. We just talked about that yesterday or 2 days ago. I want to live and enjoy fruitful work, which is, I think, a lot of the genesis of what Optimized Advisors is all about.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably what we're talking about health. We're talking about fitness and working out, and we had fun.
Yeah, overall balance of life, your journey to get where you are today, which is now, you were not a CFP. You were close to, but not yet a CFP. So congratulations on obtaining and finalizing that designation.
Thank you.
You've also authored, in partnership with other advisors, a new book.
Yep.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, More Than Money.
More Than Money, right here. You can get it everywhere that books are offered, I'm sure. Or email us.
Morethanmoneybook.com is the website. But yeah, Amazon. It's on, distribution, Barnes and Noble, and all your different outlets. But yeah, so this was a really fun project to work on, and a lot of times in this business, I think you can kind of feel like you're sitting on an island, right? Like we're so focused on building our practices, serving our clients. You wear so many different hats, especially when you're an independent firm owner. So I was connected with this particular group of financial planners through a group called the Advisors Growth Community, Advisors Growing in Community, the AGC. So 2 independent financial planners started this group about 3 years ago. And independently, people come and they join. It's a predominantly online community, though we get together every once in a while at conferences and things of that nature. And inside of this group, which is probably about 150 or so different financial planners of all different types and styles, meaning some are at very, very big firms, some are solo practitioners who work out of their home, some are part of ensemble groups. There's RAs only, there's fee only, there's broker-dealer associations, and everything in between. So it's really cool because you just get this like kind of melting pot of business models. But the one underlying theme about this entire group is, how do we make the profession better? And how do we make the profession better not only for the people who work in it, but for the people who are ultimately trying to serve, right? Mm-hmm. Our clients, our end users. And inside of this community, there's a lot of little sub-conversations that are happening, right? Study groups, right? Investment groups, and people who talk about just their own fitness, and there's a Peloton group in there, so everybody's competing.
Is there really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
There's an Apple Watch group. They're competing on Apple Watch and stuff like that. I'm a Garmin guy, so I don't have Apple Watch. But nonetheless, inside of that group, there was a thread that was started about this idea to write a book. It was inspired by, I don't know if you know who Josh Brown at Ritholtz Wealth Management.
I know the name, but
so Josh Brown is the CEO of Ritholtz Wealth Management, and Brian Portnoy, who's a pretty prominent financial blogger, probably about 5 years ago, got together and they wrote a book called How I Invest My Money. And they had 25 or so financial advisors talk about how they invest their money on the premise of, hey, financial advisors spend all day telling you what to do. Well, what do they do? So let's kind of open the curtain a little bit and see into their portfolios. And these 25 willing individuals shared, like, this is where my money is actually invested, how much I have, how I buy real estate or 401k and whatever. So it was really, really cool and very open, honest, and authentic. So our idea was, well, let's do something similar to that, where we're telling like these real stories, but instead of making it investment focused, let's make it planning focused. And that's how this idea was birthed. So these are 28 real stories, actual clients, obviously with their blessings, names and some details have been changed, but it's the real stories of how planning has impacted all different types of people. So the book is kind of broken into different groups, right? So there's your young couple starting their journey, having their first children. There's people selling businesses. I wrote a story about a family.
The Hat Lady.
That's right, the Hat Lady, a wonderful, wonderful woman. And if you were ever in Hollywood, California, you knew who the Hat Lady was.
An elderly woman, right? 80s.
I met her in 20.
I mean, obviously not always, but when you met her and your involvement with her.
Yeah, I met her in 2010, 2011, and she was already in her early to mid 80s.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, probably mid to later 80s, actually. So as the story goes, I meet this woman and eventually meet her son and her granddaughter. And so I wrote a story about how their attitude towards money and their approach to planning has created something from, she's got this incredible story coming from Austria and really coming here with nothing, right? She's escaping the war at that time and, builds this beautiful life and has this beautiful family and, builds this really unbelievable empire, right? This portfolio of real estate and securities and different things, not because she made tons of money or because she had, some secret ingredient or was lucky or anything else, but just was really diligent about the planning process, then taught all those lessons to her son. And then her son picked up the reins and followed suit. And then he taught those lessons to his daughter. And I just had the opportunity to come in as a professional planner and really not change anything, but kind of polish some of the edges to create some efficiencies. And so I've been blessed now to work with 3 generations of this family, which is really cool, as an advisor when you get to do things like that.
It's really cool, and it's very rare.
It is.
Most of the time, the statistics are overwhelmingly that by the 3rd generation, whatever empire has been built is eroded.
That's how we start our chapter. It's by 71%, right? Inherited wealth is lost by the 2nd generation, and 92% of the time it's lost by G3, the 3rd generation. So, I mean, they are defying staggering odds, which is really funny because when I shared that with them, they didn't think that they were anything special, right? And it just goes to, if I had to describe some character traits, right, they're very, very humble, right? For the amount of wealth and income that they have, right? And of course, there are people who have more, but they're incredibly humble, incredibly kind and generous, very down-to-earth, salt-of-the-earth type of people. You would never know. And incredibly grateful, right? Incredibly grateful for, the opportunities they've had and sure they've taken some risks and they've worked out in their favor. But, gratitude and humility would be the 2 overarching themes that kind of resonate in all generations, right? Even the daughter now who has seen and witnessed, right? She grew up in a pretty affluent area. She grew up in a nice home. She never worried about money or having. She went to good schools and had those paid for, and but is incredible. Like now she's in her career and working. It's very diligent with her money, saves really well. So it's really cool.
How old are they?
The 3rd generation.
No, the 3rd generation.
Yeah,
the adult children.
Yep. So each generation only had 1 child. So his daughter would be the youngest. Her and her husband, she married a fantastic guy, just really, really sweet couple. They're in their early 30s, 30.
Oh, they're young.
33,
Yeah,
34.
yeah. Okay.
Young, but enough time they've been working for a decade. So they're doing well in their careers, and they're starting to kind of rise up in their income trajectories and things of that nature. So they're starting to amass and accumulate, independent of their families, their own wealth. And you're watching these behaviors, and it's really fun.
Yeah, that is great. Well, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
Hopefully that's going well. I know that you were very excited about that, as many of your clients were, and that's a big privilege to have the opportunity to contribute to a book and get it out in the world.
Well, it was fun because you get to check off that box of published author, and we were very, very lucky to get picked up by Harriman House, the publishing company. But the really cool part of this story is that we didn't make any money. This cost me more money. We're not going to take any proceeds. So 100% of the proceeds from all the book sales, including the ones that all the authors purchased themselves, is all being donated. So it's being donated to organizations that are going to help promote financial literacy, help promote more diversity in financial planning. So in the profession, make ways to help younger people get into this profession, which is not always the easiest. We don't make it easy to become a successful financial advisor.
No.
It's very, very difficult.
It's very, very difficult. It's very difficult. And anytime that the industry can create opportunities and platforms to give back is a wonderful thing. So kudos to you and everyone who's contributed to the book.
Yeah.
Making a difference. Okay, let's pivot on. Insurance. We've been more intentional in our relationship, and certainly you in your practice and working with many of your clients in doing some insurance and insurance planning, and
Sure.
And you're doing a great job in that. And in one of our recent conversations, we've talked about just diving deeper into the right way, and let's put it, we can have a little fun with this of maybe not the not so right way.
Right.
And some of the clients have come to you with information. Many of your clients are younger or of middle age.
Yep.
And so they're on some version of social media, some access platform of content, and they're relaying in many cases that content back to us, the advisor, right? And
That's right.
And so we're finding ourselves in this situation of, okay, where did you hear said information? What is it that was said? Let me help to understand this. Let's unpack this from an actual financial planning perspective, as opposed to just, let's call it noise to begin with. And in fairness and reality, there's a significant difference between an insurance professional that is insurance licensed only and their bandwidth or abilities to push the envelope, as compared to their counterparts that are related to the SEC, FINRA, and securities requirements, right? I mean, there's layers of compliance and fiduciary responsibility and oversight that does not exist per se in just the insurance only side of things. And I'll step back and say there's also good and bad to that.
Sure.
There are wonderful pleasures and advantages in certain situations where I have full autonomy and control of what products I distribute. Nobody is necessarily telling me that I can only sell this 1, 2, or 3 products, narrowing it down significantly so that maybe I'm not offering the best solution given the world of products that exist to my clients. I'm beholden to only being able to distribute 1, 2, or 3. And that's not necessarily a client advantage. I think there's also something to be said from that of, well, you're not going to do them any harm. Okay, well, I understand that too, but am I really providing the client the best solution? Anyways, I say that all to kind of unpack the next part of what we wanted to touch base on was just going through a little bit more about life insurance and some of the noise and the news that we're seeing and hearing, and enlighten the audience on some things that might be alarming.
Yeah. Well, so you bring up a really good point, which I would assume the majority of your audience is financial professionals, right? Because a lot of the things even you just said, I think the average client wouldn't understand. And at the crux of it, in our industry, in financial services, which is a huge umbrella statement, there is no rule or requirement that creates professional credentials or titles, meaning that you can have just an insurance license and call yourself a financial advisor. There is no rule that determines who can't and cannot use the title financial advisor, which is why all of these designations and all of these licenses exist, because there's all these different governing bodies. But to your point, not all financial advisors are created equal. They're very, very different.
Right.
And it's not to say that there's one that's better or worse than another. They're just different. There are different barriers to entry. There are different standards and requirements. And to your point, right, sometimes, working at a certain type of firm or a certain institution is going to restrict the way you can serve the general public. And that has its own, set of obstacles and challenges. But regardless of what type of financial advisor, financial professional you are, I think the key ingredient that's missing in most relationships or most transactions when a product is actually being sold is just the education and awareness around what's going on. Because we live in this like super, super short attention span, culture where, social media today, right, you're watching a 30 or a 90-second video, right? Because everything is video now. Everything's a reel, right? Everything's a TikTok video. And that is the equivalent of just reading the headlines of the article on the New York Times and not actually reading the content of the piece. So you have people who are trying to capture the attention of their general market who are just reading very compelling, hooky, type of headlines, creating something to capture an audience. And now you are left as a consumer of this information to just sort of decipher all this on your own. Where you and I, who, as we work in this industry, and specifically insurance, depending on what type of, tool or solution you're using for a client in a financial plan, the disclosure documents can be hundreds of pages long. And they're hundreds of pages long for a reason, because these aren't simple, just, hey, it's this, 1 + 1 = 2, and that's it. No. These are complex tools that need to be understood and, put into a more holistic and broad financial plan. Not something that's like, hey, this is a one-trick pony. We were watching the, certain insurance products are the smartphone of.
Oh yeah, well we got to play that. We're gonna have fun here. Yeah.
But it's like, it's such a bad analogy, and it's clever, right? And it's compelling, but it's just not
clickbait. Yes. How appropriate, and then also how misleading.
Yeah,
is my question. So let's pull that up. Let's play the video,
because it becomes
I think you found this through a client, right? A client. Or you did. It doesn't matter. This came to the surface.
I had a situation. I think the video we're going to watch is just one of many. Yeah, of these types of, let's call them financial influencers, or if you're hip with it and you're Gen Z, a FinFluencer.
Oh my gosh, that's a thing?
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh gosh.
And
I'm going to call this insurance propaganda. So let's listen to this insurance propaganda.
If you think about it, the IUL is the smartphone of life insurance. And the reason why I say that is because you can use your smartphone as a camera, as a calculator, as a way to call people. You can use it as a flashlight. You can use it for a ton of different things. But a regular telephone can only be used to make calls. Very similar to term life insurance, which is what most people are familiar with. And the only thing that can be leveraged for is when you pass away, your family members get cut a check. However, with the IUL, it's a cash value life insurance policy. So you can use it as a retirement plan. You can use it as a high yield savings account. You can use it as a college fund. You can use it to be your own bank. You can also use it for infinite banking. So why spend X amount of dollars per month just to have a term life policy that will eventually expire? And if you happen to not pass away during that time, then you would have basically just funded that policy for no reason. When you could leverage an IUL, which is permanent life insurance, and also take advantage of the cash value accumulation components within the policy. If you want more info.
Okay. So what you and I will have two takes on that video, I think. Albeit similar, my commentary is going to be a little bit different than probably yours, coming from, an insurance, let's say, expert side of things, right? But from a financial advisor's perspective, working directly and interfacing with clients, both young and old, your take would also be a little bit different. So as you see that, summarize your thoughts and feelings.
So what he said is not untrue, right? Like, he didn't make any false or misleading statements. Everything that he said was in fact true. The problem is that
well, but hold on. Let me add to that and say, is omission of information a mistruth?
Is that a question? Is omission?
Because there is very important information that is missing.
That's right.
From that video.
Yeah. Okay. So
from
there
his
are
message.
So nothing that he said was untrue, but he didn't say everything.
Correct.
And again, you're looking in, like, there's very clever marketing that is employed in that video, right? He's talking about, like, hey, it's the smartphone of insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who doesn't have a smartphone and who doesn't love their smartphone, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're tethered to these things 24/7. So then the next thing, he starts to rattle off all of these features, right? You can use it as a retirement plan, as a bank, infinite banking, which is such a buzzy social media thing to be saying these days, this whole idea of infinite banking. You can use it as whatever else he said, right? All these different features, like, wow, like, I want all of those. Well, let's just make sure, like, that you can't use an IUL for all of those at the same time, right? It's not everything at the same time. It's not a Swiss Army knife and you just pick up one knife and close it and then pick up. No, it's not how it works. And other videos that this guy has posted, he talks about, like, this being a solution that would precede things like a Roth IRA or a savings, emergency savings account or a taxable investment account.
Right.
IULs are
superior. This product is superior.
This is it.
Above all options.
That's
before a savings account, before CDs, before Roths, before American funds, mutual fund, before any of this stuff. IUL is the superior solution.
That is the superior. And I don't know this, but I would bet that he is probably not securities licensed. He would probably be an example of an insurance only agent.
Right.
So it's like, well, of course he's going to talk about this product. Like, that's his only incentive.
Right.
His only incentive is he's not incentivized to say, hey, look at all these other, options that you have for your money.
Right.
So he is just playing the game, right?
Right.
Social media has created this game where it's like that. He's got 500,000 followers, right? Who knows if that drives business for him or not? I'm sure it probably does, which is why he does it. But the scary part is we had not a client, but a child of an elderly client, so an adult child, owned her own business and made good money, but was terribly skeptical, right? Had depression-era parents, which demographics and psychographics definitely play into, like, the invisible money scripts that people tell themselves, right? So it dictates how we behave and make money decisions. Her parents were depression-era parents who were very skeptical of banking. So she grew up in this household being very weary of, like, the institution. So she didn't use big banks, right? She only used small credit unions or small local banks and things like that, which I wonder how that's working out, in this season. And didn't believe in the stock market, didn't believe in investing, didn't want the risk, felt like there was no control. But had had 6 figures saved, sitting around that she just didn't need. She didn't need it for everyday life. It would be what you and I would call earmarked for longer term investable capital.
Right.
And not married, no kids, no home. So one of the things that, like, anytime somebody brings up an insurance product to me, the first question is like, well, where's the insurable need, right? Because yes, it has all these other awesome features, benefits and things, but, like,
why?
There has to be an insurable need, right? There has to, an insurable need, right? I'm sure you would agree with this, is there is some sort of financial loss that would occur if X event happens. And in life insurance, it's if the insured loses their life. So what is the financial loss, or what is the risk that's going to happen if you pass away? Who's dependent on you? No kids, no husband, no house. It's like, it's hard to justify. Not that there maybe doesn't exist, right? Not that it can't be a solution, but it's like there are probably some other things we can talk about first. Well, this particular person she had found a TikTok video of an IUL, and she was contemplating buying a new car. And what she wanted to do was to take this $100,000, put it as a single premium into an IUL product, and then use the loan feature to take money out, to borrow against her policy.
Buy the car.
To buy the car. Because why would I pay the bank? Why would I go get a car loan from the bank when I can be my own bank? Infinite banking, right? This is brilliant.
Right.
I'll just you do realize you're going to have to pay for life insurance, and a lot of life insurance that you probably don't need.
Right.
So these, but there was, in talking with this woman for, many, many weeks,
right,
trying to educate her, it was, nope, I don't trust banks. I don't trust institutions. I don't trust the market, whatever that means.
Right.
So this seems like a more sensible thing.
Yeah.
Because I saw this, I found some guy on TikTok and I watched 14 of his 90-second videos, and it makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah. Yeah, and that's the concerning part, really. I mean, at the end of the day, what is an insurance company? Most of them are pretty large institutions.
Right.
So, not that they're the same as banks. Banks and insurance companies are very different. But when you're talking about
the distrust of the system.
It's like 100%. Insurance companies are no different than,
of course,
from that perspective. I will say a few of the things in the video I take away from it. It's like, clickbait.
Yes.
It's the headline of the article.
Yep.
Well, let's now read into the article. Actually, with term and life insurance, there are, in some cases, ancillary benefits that can be attached to a policy. So depending on your need, insurable need, your young family, you do have 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids. Well, in my loss of life, there might be significant need for capital replacement, right? Right. Well, I need a pretty hefty life insurance policy to take care of my wife or my husband and my 3 or 4 or 5 kids, who happen to be 2, 4, 6, and 8 years old.
Right.
So I need $1 million plus. Well, that would be a very expensive permanent policy, whereas I could cover my insurable need with a term life policy and attach an accelerated death benefit rider for if I become impaired from a health perspective, there might be some ancillary benefits. Those plans exist, and they're a fraction, 10 cents on the dollar, 5 cents on the dollar relative to their permanent counterpart.
That's right.
So as a planner, this might make significantly greater sense than this euphoric idea of, the smartphone and Swiss Army knife of insurance.
It just, I think one of the most important parts of a financial plan is the cash flow plan. And I think it's one of the most overlooked parts of a financial plan because it's not terribly sexy.
Right.
Nobody cares about budgets. Nobody cares about measuring income versus expenses. Let's talk about investments. Like, that's cool. Right. Let's talk about how I'm going to not pay money to the IRS because that makes me feel better. But talking about how much money I spend, I don't want to talk about that. So a lot of times in insurance planning for us, cash flow decisions become a pretty significant part of the conversation. You have to figure out, and your example is spot on, right? Younger families, term insurance is cheaper. By the way, you talked about accelerated death benefits. Why not throw a conversion feature on there? Convert that to something more permanent down the line. Have some optionality in what you're doing, but, leave yourself enough capital to continue to save, put money away, build other parts of your financial plan. It's gonna give you so much more flexibility in the long run.
100%. The thing of it is this is everywhere.
Yeah.
And for many, it becomes their main form of access to insurance and financial planning information, which is the other part of what we want to talk about is this dissemination of information and how it's being distributed, and really let's call it the credit quality of all of this content and information that's being out there. not just externally, so from advisors or professionals to consumers, but also how is this information being disseminated internally in the industry?
Right. Yeah, which is a really interesting, because a lot of the loudest voices on social media within the industry who get notoriety, who get large following counts, who get a lot of, follows and subscribes and reposts are the same ones who are standing on the platform telling everybody else what to do. Mm-hmm. Hey, this is how you build a successful business. Mm-hmm. And marketing will always be a part of any business. I don't care if you sell a widget, a service, a good, you can sell soap, it doesn't matter. You need to market your product or service to your, eventual consumers. So I want to be careful and not to poo-poo on marketing and social media as a marketing platform, because that's really what it is, right? It's a way to reach audiences and get eyeballs and inform them about your product service. We, both use it as one of the mediums where we get out our stories.
100%. Very much so. The lifeblood of any financial or insurance practitioner's business is marketing, right? I could be the greatest mind, the sharpest planner, the best insurance professional, but if I don't have a marketing strategy and a way to actually deploy my wealth of knowledge and expertise, I have nothing.
That's right.
And so, it's also very important to understand how information and marketing has changed over the years. Mm-hmm. In our first podcast together, we talked about how you cut your teeth in this business, and it was the old school way, cold calling.
That's right.
And let's go back to that point in time before we had access to all of this type of marketing and mediums that we do have today, which become very noisy. It was really like almost two. I could either, maybe three if I go back far enough. I could physically knock on doors if I go back far enough. Two, I could pick up the phone and call people. Or three, I could actually use the Pony Express and drop physical mailings to people to hopefully engage response. That really was it.
Well, I mean, I would argue like radio, television, right? So you had some of those mediums that existed.
Yeah, but back then,
but not for your average, independent financial planner.
Right, and even then, it was almost more like you had to be corporately employed to be a talking head.
Yes.
Not that I independently was buying radio time as an individual or an independent practitioner, an entrepreneur trying to gain. Now, to your point, that became one of the very rapid growing segments of our space from a marketing perspective as this whole seminar model matured and got to its point of, let's call it capitulation, if you will. Mm-hmm. Brilliant minds said, you know what, I can reach a bigger audience. I can automate my messaging. I can scale my brand by getting on the radio, and I won't just be on the radio in my local community. I will syndicate and I will grow my brand and presence. The best did to be a national namesake, all under the guise of doing actually being in practice.
Right.
But now you've got no different than a musician, right? Some musicians have made their way through purely just posting their video, their content on Instagram, Facebook, whatever the platform is. Mm-hmm. And going full circle, these individuals now have access to do the same thing and share their message, good or bad, right or wrong, misleading or not. Mm-hmm. They're sharing their messaging, and some of them are scaling incredibly fast, and there's concerns to that.
Because the stakes are different. There's a huge difference between a musician or an artist sharing their art on the internet, and as a consumer, me enjoying a song that you may not like, right? You as a consumer may be like, that's trash, and I know music, and this is why it's not good, and da-da-da-da-da.
100%. I either like it or I don't.
That's right. But the risk to me liking, let's call it bad music, is pretty low, right?
Correct.
I'm wasting time.
Yep,
Fine.
absolutely.
But the stakes are much higher when you're talking about financial advice. So when somebody is distributing bad or misleading or just a sliver of financial advice that somebody then consumes and acts upon, right? I think about like this example of this woman, the daughter of a client. she didn't do the business with the person she saw the video from. She didn't call that guy or that gal. She called some other insurance broker, right? Some other third party who is the benefactor, who is more than willing to take her money and collect a commission on that. Something that we are not willing to do.
Right.
And so I think about, like, even in that feedback loop, right? Let's say that these people who are touting these, these charismatic videos online are getting the attraction or getting the eyeballs, right? We're looking at it, millions of views, right, on this person's page. And they've got some links and click here and, sign up for an application and somebody from our team will reach out. Let's just assume that everybody who watched and wanted to buy insurance bought it with them. They at least then have that opportunity to take an ethical high road and say, no, here's what you should be able to do. Opposed to, now I've got this independent idea that I'm going to latch onto, and I'm going to go to this other third party, and I'm just going to tell them, hey, Mr. Order Taker, write me a $100,000 premium IUL policy because that's what I need. I've already decided that's what I want. And you and I both know that there are plenty of people who say, sure, we have that product on our shelf. Let me deliver it to you. You're going to pay us for that transaction. Great.
What are your values? I'm transitioning here deliberately. What are your values or your strategy as it relates to the content that you portray, that you put out there? Kind of what's your bylaws, if you will?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So when you're creating a video, it's like my thought process is at the highest level. What do I want to instill? What are the areas that where do I want to go, and where do I definitely not want to go?
Well, here's how I think I'm different than a lot of other people. So I post to social media every single day on every different platform, but I do not post to get clients. And every advisor that I meet who sees what we do and the traction we get always asks me, like, well, how does it work? How many clients do you get? I post for the benefit of my client. So my end user is always the existing person that I serve, the person who's already engaged us, who's already signed, to pay us some sort of fee for financial advice and financial planning. So everything that I create digitally is speaking to that person, to that demographic. And I want, when I originally started doing our podcast and all of our social videos, my thought was, hey, this is going to be another great way as our business was growing. Like, I can't pick up the phone and call every one of my clients every week. It's just impossible. I don't have enough time.
Absolutely. Amen.
So, to optimize our practice, it's like, well, how many times should I be talking to a client every year? Should it just be the 4 times on a quarterly check-in? Is that all they get? That doesn't seem enough.
Right.
That's not the type of experience we want to deliver. But again, I can't call them every week. But I can send them a podcast every week. I can push a video out to their social feed every single day. I can put a newsletter in front of them every Friday morning. So I have these mediums now that I leverage with the sole intention of serving the people who've already entrusted us. So a lot of our marketing, the way we gather new clients is not really digitally focused. Now, if I'm being honest, we're trying to build a better and better system of creating digital media and a larger digital brand so that we do have some sort of marketing channel in the future to have, the opportunity to talk with people and discuss real financial planning. But from step one in our whole onboarding process, right? After your initial call, like, you start with a discovery meeting, and we're not just going to talk about insurance, or we're not just going to talk about your IRA. We're either talking about all of it, including, like, send me your tax returns. Let's talk about your budget. Let's talk about your family values and history, or you're just not going to be a fit. Like, that's just where we've sort of planted our flag.
Yeah, it's interesting. Thank you for that. And it's not that dissimilar to why we started doing this podcast. It's like, it's a great way to share your message. That it's like, I have things that I would like to say to people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk to all 200, 300, 500 clients. I can't do that. But this is the way that I can access, or clients can access, these thoughts, this information that we want to continue to put out there. So I was reading up on this, and there's maybe 400 or so thousand financial advisors throughout the country.
Declining every day too.
So that's the second part of the stat, was that a third of these individuals will be gone within, let's aggressively say 36 months, conservatively say 5 years. So that's 150,000 advisors who've now gone. Well, with that, the demand for advisors, I don't think, has decreased. Certainly, with the population and youngsters coming up, probably increased. So my concern is, okay, well, we definitely need more young advisors like yourself, but we want more young advisors.
I appreciate you call me a young advisor.
Absolutely. Hey, it's funny. It's a lot of our agents. Not a lot, but some of them have over the years have certainly aged. They're now in their retirement years and they're still doing their thing and they don't want to let it go. They love it. It keeps them mentally sharp, right? And some of these guys are in their 70s and women are in their 70s. Like anybody who's younger than them, they could be 70 years old and this advisor might be 75. It's a kid, it's still youngster.
Yeah.
So anyways, you got 150,000, 160,000 advisors who are going to be gone. Right. Well, there's a new young group. They should be more like you. The concern is, are they getting this information out there and thinking that they need to be this aggressive type of personality to do right by their clients or to build their practice? So what does it look like 5 years from now?
Right. Well, I think we were talking about this before. Like, it's very difficult to get into this industry, right? There's not a lot of, I don't know what you want to define as young, but let's just say like you're post-grad, right? So your early 20s. How do you become an advisor?
Right.
What is your path?
Yeah. What did you do to become an advisor?
So I started as a broker, but really like I don't even count that as like the stepping stone to becoming an advisor. I went to the big institutions, right? So I worked for JP Morgan for 12 years, which, the benefit of that is my business card had my name and a logo and a name brand that had 200 years of history and credentials. And they sponsored, the US Open, and they've got stadiums and arenas named after. So there's this built-in marketing effort that's there, right? There's some authority and some prestige that's added with that goes beyond just like, well, who's Andrew Martz? Like,
you solely lean into that.
Big time. So
100%.
At 24 years old, when I started working for them, like I leaned on that heavily, right? That's how I sold my value proposition is I represent the smartest institution in the world. And still today, through this current climate, like they have proven to be one of the most, stable institutions in the financial system.
Yeah, no arguing that. Yep.
Now, as an advisor who is in that system for a decade, there are some real limitations to how I, as an advisor, can serve my clients. I've got, I used to call it as a more captive advisor inside of these institutions. You get a one-page menu, right? And there's 10 items. And if you don't find something on that menu that you like that's it. Opposed to when you build your own firm, right, and you're in an independent, model, it's the Cheesecake Factory menu. I've got pages, and I can do any. You need insurance. Yes, let's look at your risk management plan. Oh, you need financial planning. You need a cash flow plan. Let's look at that. We've got that too. So now you've got this way to serve clients depending on where their needs are.
Right. But the level of sophistication required is significantly increased purely by the vast offerings that you have. There's no end in sight to what you can offer.
That's right. But it's also changed a lot, right? Because so much of what we used to value in this industry has been commoditized. So, while the sophistication level has increased, it's also taken a right-hand turn. And there's more value on personalized and customized individual planning, less importance on like product investment markets, because markets and investment portfolios to a large extent have been highly commoditized.
Correct.
I can get, a single ticket solution, a multi securities, portfolio, and all of those are very, very good and very low cost and very effective for,
marginally different.
Marginally.
Same goes in our world. I mean,
Same
on the
as
annuity
insurance.
side of things, where index annuities, I would say 10, 12 years ago, there was significantly greater variation between the product offering of one company or
Right.
one solution to what we have today. It's become much more rate driven because the differences between the carriers and the products are marginally different.
Right. So to your point before, right, you've got this exiting demographic out of the financial services profession. Where is the youth behind that? Like, where is their path where they can see this is something that I want to do? And many of them might be taking the route, right? Think about if you're 25 years old today and you're mildly interested in personal finance, economics, and market. Well, I can go work for ABC Bank, right, or ABC Wirehouse, or I can go start a social media page, and I can hook people into there and not even sell a product. I can just monetize that platform in and of itself, right? I think one of your last episodes, you had a social media manager on here. Like that has become a very blossoming and a very real industry. You can make real money doing that.
Right.
So let me just podcast and create content and be paid for the things I'm interested in and never have to sell anything.
Right. I just become a presence.
I just
a brand.
I become
an influencer.
Yeah, and
a brand unto my own.
That's right. So like how many, and I don't think it's a large percentage, but how many young potential financial planners do we lose to that more attractive alternative?
Being the YouTuber.
I gotta get licensed. I got compliance. I gotta do all these different things. Like, oh, gosh. Or I can just post, on my phone.
Right.
So I don't know what the answer is, but I would assume that there are some who, because there are very, very large personal finance bloggers, YouTube creators who make tremendous amounts of money and have been doing it for a long time. So again, up and coming, potential financial planners are looking that as now, right? When I got into the industry, it was like you work for a broker or you work for a bank.
Right.
Or an insurance company.
Or a big insurance company.
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of your options. What do you want to do?
This is where you're going to cut your teeth, and then you decide maybe.
And no matter what route you take, you knew it was going to be tough. I'm either cold calling, door knocking, or I'm sitting in an office and, working the warm leads of the institution.
Right.
Which, you pick your poison, I guess. Today, there's just more options.
What does the next 3 to 5 years look for WIS Advisor?
I think we're probably at the point now where we want to start adding that next generation of advisor.
And you're one of your most successful growth strategies has been book acquisitions.
Yeah, that's right.
Which, as we just previously said, it's that definitely not diminishing.
That's right. That's not diminishing at all.
Probably only accelerating over the next 24 to 36 months.
That's right.
So wonderful opportunities continue to present themselves. Just finding the right fit, right?
Finding the right fit, right? We've done 2. You learn a lot from,
each one, I would imagine. Yeah.
That's right. What to look for, what's right. The advisor, the selling advisor matters a lot. The clients and the client demographic matters a lot. And more so the psychographics than the demographics, right? You want people who believe in what you believe in, which is going to come from an advisor whose practice does and touts the same thing that you believe in. So yeah, I absolutely think that'll be a continued strategy for us. And we pursue that in a process-oriented way to a greater extent. But
how much weight do you put into, which you touch on a little bit, but expand a little bit more, into the culture of not only the advisor or the practice, but also the clientele?
Yeah.
And are there things that you would have done or could do as you've learned, not differently, but in addition to?
Yeah, I think that asking better questions, like culture-oriented questions in the, let's call it like courting process of looking at acquiring firms, to get a better handle on how to create the approach, right? Because to me, the most important part of an acquisition is the first 6 months. The first 6 months allows you to establish like, hey, we're making a transition. So there's a statement moment, right? January 1st, we're gonna head in a new direction. We're announcing a merger. We're announcing an acquisition, and Scott is now a part of WIS Advisors, and all of his clients, we're welcoming them into the family. And now I've got 6 months to establish culture. And in that 6 months, what's going to happen is you're going to have people who buy into that culture and people who don't want anything to do with that culture, which is fine. Like, you're not going to serve and meet everybody's needs or make everybody happy. So I think particularly the first one, I did not do a great job in that first 6 months of like establishing our culture as much as I tried to meet clients where they were at. And maybe give a little bit to some old ways of thinking for a little bit too long. Gratefully, thankfully, the people that we work with are fantastic. So once we decided to really pour on that culture element very heavily, many people have adopted and said and embraced and said, hey, we love this. This is great. But I think like the best measuring stick for that is going to be the lead advisor, right? And if there's a team of advisors, like
right.
spending time with that person or group of persons to understand them, their motives, and how they've built their business, and who they're serving, who their most important clients are, how they spend their time. Like, tell me about your day. What do you do on a normal day? Those are going to be really insightful things to understand, not just the firm, right, the employees and the advisors, but also the clients, because those clients are attracted to those people.
Thank you for coming in.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Enjoy your commute.
It's going to be a long one.
Andrew Martz, CFP MBA. I sincerely do appreciate you coming in and taking the time with us today.
Helping us optimize. Always.
That's the goal.
That's what we're doing.
It's a lifelong journey.
Amen.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, like, share, leave a comment or review. Be sure to check us out on social media at Optimized Advisor Podcast. Till next time.